Hello there, welcome to the Education System Reboot channel. It is Christmas Eve, early morning for me. Could be totally different time wherever you watch this. It's been a few days, and this is kind of going to be an all over the board with one kind of common theme, just the power, the importance of routines. I'm going to start actually by being just a little vulnerable and transparent. If I go back to before I began my journey of personal growth, as a teacher, I would always find breaks to be very difficult. And I don't think I could have articulated why in the past, but I think I understand 100% because there was a lack of structure. And everything in our world says, you need to take breaks, you need to relax, you need to, drink your beer, drink your wine, do whatever, to unwind. In the past, and I've been teaching now 12 years, and I've always struggled with breaks. And then summer breaks are usually the worst. As I've lived, I have kids now, and there's things that fill up my day which create a slightly better structure. So it's probably gotten a little bit better over time. But the reality is, without good routines and habits, I floundered. I struggled. I found breaks to be just very, very, very difficult for me. Now, I wanted to preface all that by just saying, okay, so now I'm in a place where I'm personally growing, and I've developed much better routines. And I've done videos about my personal journey, about what my routines look like. But full disclosure, just like life, I hope we can all relate to this. I hope. No matter how good our habits are, life can derail us. We sometimes aren't as motivated as we like. Our feelings will, quote, betray us at times. I love the quote that says we need to train our minds to be stronger than our feelings. And I'd be the first poster child to say I fail at that often. But at least I know that I'm trying to head that way. Now, all right, so a lot of backstory. But the reason I'm bringing this up is I think that I want to start with this idea of however ingrained our routines or habits are, they are directly proportional to our willingness to fudge on them. So here's where I'm getting at. So over the last 2 years, but especially the last 8-9 months during COVID, my morning routine has really been solidified through an exercise. So I have this very structured, I wake up, make my bed, drink water, get hydrated. I do an exercise. It's either running on the treadmill or running outside, depending on the weather, on one day. And then I alternate it with just some sort of resistance training thing. While I do that, I'm always listening to a personal growth audio. 9 times out of 10, 90% of the time, maybe even more, it's something by John Maxwell, just because I have access to that. And he resonates. His messages really resonate with me. And then, I usually take a shower real quick afterwards, and then I do my reading every day. And then if I'm going to school or whatever, or I have a buzzing routine for my music, because those are all things I need to do every morning to set up my day for success. And why this is important is because that habit has been, I think, ingrained and instilled in me really, really strongly over the last 8-9 months. And so, to be blunt, I haven't had a problem maintaining that during breaks, Thanksgiving break, this break. Now, do I do it at the exact same time every morning? No, because it's break time. Like today, normally I'm up at 5:30ish. This morning it was 7. I didn't set an alarm, and I let it, and I did it at my own time, which was beautiful, and that was relaxing. But I still accomplished it. But here's the part where now I'm just being transparent. My nighttime routine has not been established that well. I would say at the best, I kind of figured out what I was going to do probably 3-ish months ago. And I have not been doing it as much. I have found that as I've been heading towards the break, I have struggled mentally a little bit with the idea that, oh my gosh, it's going to be the break. And and there's, and if you're a teacher, you understand there's that last push towards the Christmas break. So mentally I was just drained. But again, my morning routine was already established, and it's almost like I don't think about it. My nighttime routine, I was still having to kind of force myself to do it. So the reality is I've kind of fallen off the wagon. Now that's to say that it's going to be easier to get back on than it would have been, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 months ago, whatever, because it's still established and I still felt value. But I guess that's the thing I want to point out. So there's a direct correlation with how long and your habit has been established, your routines have been established, and then how easily they are to manage or easily to repeat without thinking. Now, I want to tie this into the education system, because again, what good is me just talking about this if I don't say how we can apply it, etc. So as I was thinking about making this video, sorry, my nose is itching. I was thinking about, okay, so if there is a direct correlation to how long you've been doing a routine or a habit, whatever, and that correlation basically demonstrates how easily it is to maintain it, right? The longer you do something, it's basically built in. The shorter you've done it, the more start and stops, the more difficult, the more you're going to probably compromise on doing it. And so with that said, I believe if we can think that and transfer it to the education system, we can think about, okay, so if we have a system, which I think is the current system, that doesn't process or teach or prioritize habits and routines, and it's just always thinking about curriculum, right? Well, then it never lays in a long enough time where kids can internalize and actually learn a routine. Okay. Now, routines can be 100 different things to a certain extent, and every person can develop a routine for a different area of their life, habits for the different areas of their life. But because I feel like we don't focus on the routines as much. Now, again, like I said, if you do, I'm sorry if I'm maybe I'm preaching to the choir. I don't know, but I just my observational ability tells me that the system as a whole does not prioritize routines. I think some individual teachers do, and I would almost argue that probably the teachers that are successful, if you talk to them, they could demonstrate and articulate a very, very clear system routine that they implement. The problem is there's the inconsistency from year to year, right? And so a lot of this channel is about creating the consistency across, K-12 in terms of what we focus on, which is habits, et cetera, et cetera. So going back to what I was kind of talking about is, if we're just throwing out curriculum and we're just, this and that, and there's no rhyme or reason, it's like we're going to do this unit and then this unit, but there's nothing tying them together, i.e. routines, right? There's no routine to tie them together. Then it's like the difference between my routine that's been established and my routine I'm struggling with is anything that's been established over a long period of time becomes second nature, becomes a true ingrained habit. And the idea is will be very difficult to I guess I lost my thought there. It'd be very difficult for a person to miss, right? It would be very difficult to say, you shouldn't do that routine because they've established this sense of I'm going to do it all the time. Whereas things that are not established or kind of trial and error, we tend to be this type that's like, well, it didn't work the first or second time, it doesn't work, right? And what music has taught me, what life has taught me, what my personal growth journey has taught me, what relationships have taught me, what life has taught me is nothing can be reduced to that simple, right? We've gotten so accustomed to everything being so easy that we rarely give things enough time to work correctly. And again, that's my argument of the power of routines, right? Routines allow that. Routines, if you establish a good, solid routine, even if it's not going great, it allows for reflection on a daily basis, right? And this is kind of what I've been talking about with the music aspect is a great music routine, a great practice routine is both to build the skills this way, but it's also an opportunity on a daily basis to reflect on the day before and feel out or process little improvements. And those little improvements are what, number one, motivate you. Because if I did my routine and I struggled and I was like, oh, that sucked. And then the next day I do the exact same thing. I do the same routine practice wise. And then I noticed in one day's difference that, those 3 little passages were better today. Okay. I can do, but it wasn't perfect. It wasn't great, but it was like these tiny incremental improvements. And those type of things are what I believe allow to build momentum, which allow for kids to feel successful, which allows for this sense of continued grit, because we talk about that a lot in education. But again, I think everything is tied back to our habits and routines. And I preach that throughout my channel. But again, I'm feeling this today because I acknowledge that in some areas of my routines, I do great. My practicing routine for my French horn has been established for years, right? Now there have been ups and downs, there have been, things, but because I have kind of what I would call have a time-tested routine that works for me, and I believe would work for anybody, but it works for me. I know the downside of not doing it. I know the upside. The upside is I'm always prepared to play my French horn, whatever the case may be. The downside is when I don't do it is, especially if I don't do it for a day or two, I notice my playing goes down. It's like it always happens. So the proof for me is those experiences. So now I know I got to do my routine. If I don't do my routine, I won't be successful. And I mean, maybe that's kind of black and white, but it's kind of the truth. The same idea. Like when I do not, in the rarity that I don't do everything of my morning routine, I feel off, right? Now, like I've already confessed, my nighttime routine right now is still in that, like, yeah, I don't want to say I'm phoning it in. I'm allowing myself sometimes to fail at it. But again, I'm also saying to myself, and this is my personal growth journey, I'm saying to myself, it's okay, because you're going to get back to it, right? Or you're going to experiment a little bit more and try to figure out, maybe there's a better nighttime routine. Maybe the reason that I'm not motivated to do it right now is that, there's maybe a better way to do it. With that being said, I still have to hold myself accountable and say to myself, you know what, I value the routines and what they bring to me. Plus, I mean, I've read enough things that say if you don't bookend your days, that's how you create stability. You have no control over what the day does. You have control over your morning and control over your night, right? So again, I mean, maybe this is me just self-confessing that from here on out, maybe I'm like, well, I just said it to the world, I better go do my nighttime routine. Anyway, and that's why this is called the Cornucopia. It's like, I didn't know exactly where I was going to go. But in general, here's what I will leave you with. If I had one piece of advice from this video, it would be for, especially in the elementary times, to take a hard look at the routines that you are establishing. Are you so concerned with getting through your checklist of curriculum things, or are you saying, you know what, our responsibility from K5 or K6, depending on what your elementary school does, is to establish foundational habits, foundational discipline habits, foundational organizational habits, foundational habits of fundamentals. Can they read, write? Can they do basic math? Like the basics, right? Are the foundational things in place, habit-wise and curricular-wise, of course, curricular-wise, so that, again, this is important, so that the power of the compound effect can take over, right? Because if kids have great habits as they go into junior high and high school and things become a little bit different, more specialized classes, they will have all these things to draw back on, which will allow them, number one, to find their passion more, find what they're good at. And then also, because those habits compound, they will be more successful. So again, and I said, I'm going to be done. If we bring all this stuff back to the central focus, the key to fixing the educational system is to create a system, a routine, a habit, a way of living, a path towards, that analogy is not going to work. A system, right? A system that kids can live through, live under, they can organize their life, and through the power of routine, through the power of habit, through the power of compound effect, through the power of consistent effort over time equals success, whatever mantra you like, but without an established system and a process, I like that word, an established process, kids are going to flounder, okay? Anyway, I don't want to say we anymore. I hope this makes sense, but I was just feeling compelled, especially because, again, I hadn't posted a video also in a few days. So again, that habit has been affected by the break. Anyway, thank you for your time. Hopefully that all made sense. I feel like I tied it in pretty well. With that being said, as always, my sign-off phrase is, remember, consistent effort over time equals success. We'll see you in the next video.